Jax found it hard to believe that the expert Caleb had mentioned was none other than his roommate, Leo. Caleb explained that while Leo was now in product development, he had a strong background in marketing and had always been successful. Caleb seemed to find it incredible himself, adding with genuine admiration that Leo was truly impressive. He mentioned how difficult it was to get a Level 2 culinary certification, marveling at how Leo managed it while working a full-time job and helping at his family's shop. Jax privately thought it wasn't so remarkable. Anyone could gain experience by sticking with an industry long enough. The certification was indeed a challenge, though. He pictured Leo as someone in his 40s, probably with a host of issues, and wondered if Caleb had been taken advantage of living with him. After a moment, he urged Caleb to call Leo and invite him to dinner. Jax insisted that this was a matter of social grace Caleb didn't quite grasp. He explained that eating together in the company cafeteria was one thing, but a formal invitation to a nice restaurant carried a different weight. He told him to just make the call. Caleb wasn't against the idea, but he felt it was strange for Jax to be the one footing the bill. He maintained that it really wasn't necessary. Jax was more insistent, telling him to just call and see if Leo would even go. Before Caleb could argue, Jax added a crucial detail, telling him to specify the restaurant was the Gilded Cage on Liberty Avenue. Unable to refuse, Caleb dialed Leo's number. To his surprise, Leo accepted immediately and with great enthusiasm. He simply asked for the time and place, explaining he was out at the moment and might be a little late. As they drove towards Liberty Avenue, Jax couldn't hide a smug satisfaction. He remarked that the choice of venue was everything. If Caleb had suggested some small diner or a casual barbecue joint, Leo might have declined. But the Gilded Cage? Jax let out a soft chuckle and raised an eyebrow, confidently stating that nobody turns down an invitation to a place like that. From the passenger seat, Caleb shot him a look before turning away with a half-amused, half-exasperated smile. His mind, however, was anxiously calculating the cash in his wallet, wondering if he had anywhere near enough to cover the meal. He knew of the Gilded Cage. It occupied a prime piece of real estate on Liberty Avenue, nestled between the City Hall Plaza and a boutique hotel. It presented a discreet facade from its twin brownstones, but inside, the decor was rumored to be extravagantly lavish. Caleb had heard whispers about the place. The food was said to be sourced from exclusive purveyors across the country. Beef from specialty ranches in Montana, poultry that was free-range in the Appalachian Hills, and seafood flown in fresh from the coasts daily. It wasn't until he'd worked a brief, desperate stint at a high-end escort service that he understood the full scope of the unassuming brownstones. The Gilded Cage was an all-inclusive playground for the wealthy, complete with companions of both genders. But it was low-key, valuing quality over quantity. Each companion was rumored to be not just beautiful, but cultured, capable of discussing anything from global markets to classic literature. He couldn't help but think that it made sense for Jax to be so familiar with such a place. Entry was typically by membership only, yet Jax had secured a table with a single impromptu phone call. He must have been a frequent guest. Caleb's thoughts drifted to a previous phone call with Jax, where he'd heard the faint, flirtatious voices of women in the background. He briefly wondered, with a strange mix of pity and morbid curiosity, what kind of toll that lifestyle took on a person. The car soon turned onto Liberty Avenue, but Jax didn't head for the restaurant's entrance. Instead, he made a sharp turn and parked in a narrow alley across the street. Caleb was puzzled. Jax explained that their valet service was small and would likely be full by now. Caleb, still lost in his thoughts about the establishment's other services, looked at the building and asked how clients managed if parking was so scarce. Did they just leave their cars scattered all over downtown? Jax locked the car and they started walking across the street. He paused, asking what Caleb meant by clients. Caleb gestured toward the brownstone, mentioning the companions who were supposedly fluent in multiple subjects. Jax understood then. He clarified that the companions usually met clients there, but the arrangements were made for the adjacent hotel, where most of them parked. He scoffed at the idea of them being worldly intellectuals, claiming most just knew a few flattering phrases. He then turned to Caleb, a look of genuine surprise on his face, as he asked how he knew so much about it. Caleb was still processing Jax's dismissive imitation of sophisticated small talk when the question hit him. He answered instinctively, explaining that he'd heard about it from the older guys at his former agency, who said that companions with specialized knowledge could command double the overnight fee. The moment the words left his mouth, an awkward silence fell between them. The night Jax had hired him wasn't a taboo subject. Jax himself had brought it up more than once, but now, trying to build a genuine friendship, it felt strangely out of place, as if Caleb were still fixated on the money. He quickly turned his head, pretending to be engrossed in the crosswalk signal. Luckily, Jax's phone rang just then. As the light turned green, he answered while they walked. His voice was sharp. He was asking someone about a child, questioning if it was his. He then declared with casual indifference that she could go ahead and have as many as she wanted, and they'd do a DNA test afterward. If the child was his, he'd give her a condo. He hung up just as another call came in. His tone softened this time, as he told the person on the other end that he was busy and suggested they call his brother instead. This call proved harder to end, involving a series of placations, evasions, and outright lies before he finally hung up just as they reached the entrance of the Gilded Cage. The restaurant's understated exterior belied its magnificent interior. The space was decorated in a style of opulent grandeur, and a hostess led them through a hall flanked by an indoor water feature cascading over polished black stone. It was Caleb's first time inside, and he was immediately intimidated by the sheer scale of the luxury. He felt a sudden self-consciousness, moving carefully, afraid of making a fool of himself. Jax, by contrast, moved with an air of relaxed ownership. Staff members bowed and greeted him, but he barely acknowledged them, a behavior that somehow came across as natural rather than arrogant. Caleb thought about how much presentation mattered. With his expression serious and his posture erect, Jax transformed into a poised and captivatingly mature man. The intensity in his eyes held a blend of sensuality and raw confidence that could surely charm anyone. Considering the content of Jax's phone calls, Caleb realized his own unease was probably misplaced. Jax had likely navigated years of romantic entanglements, dealing with women who wanted his children, his money, or his affection. Caleb's own minor history with him was probably a distant, forgotten memory, as insignificant as last year's holiday leftovers. He decided it was better to focus on how to frame the dinner for Leo. An invitation to a place like the Gilded Cage needed a good reason, and this seemed far too extravagant for a simple thank you. As Caleb sat down, his mind raced. He was still trying to come up with a plausible excuse when Leo arrived, and unexpectedly, provided the perfect opening himself. Leo looked at them, his face a picture of pleasant surprise, and asked how they knew it was his birthday. Caleb was completely taken aback but didn't let it show. He rose from his seat to greet him, a smooth smile forming on his face as he replied that it was a shame he hadn't brought a cake. Leo laughed heartily, clapping him on the shoulder. He dismissed the need for a cake, saying the food here was exceptional and that he only treated himself once or twice a year. He commended Caleb on his excellent choice of venue. After taking his seat, he nodded with a smile at Jax. Jax was surprised by how young Leo looked, barely 30. He was tall and lean, wearing a simple polo shirt despite the mild evening, his arms exposed. A pair of square-framed glasses gave him a slightly scholarly air. He wasn't unattractive, and his skin was fairer than Jax's, yet for some reason Jax felt an immediate, inexplicable dislike. Caleb made the introductions with a smile, presenting Jax as his friend and Leo as his roommate, his big bro. The two men shook hands politely. Leo's smile was open and friendly as he told Jax he'd heard a lot about him from Caleb. He remarked that it wasn't easy for Caleb to make a good friend like him in a new city. He insisted that the dinner was his treat and passed the menu over, asking what they'd like to eat. He then added that Jax looked to be about the same age as Caleb and could call him Leo. Jax glanced at Caleb before employing a bit of gamesmanship. He asked Leo what year he was born. Leo smiled, replying that he was 29. Jax's expression remained unchanged as he stated that he had just turned 30. He saw Caleb's eyes widen in disbelief but ignored him, subtly squeezing his hand under the table. With his other hand, he tapped the menu. He told them that since they were still young and working hard for their money, he, as the elder, should be the one to pay. He then proceeded to order, starting with the Wagyu tartare, lobster thermidor, and truffle-dusted sea bass, all signature dishes of the house. He added several other items until 8 or 9 dishes were listed. Still not satisfied, he ordered a bottle of fine single malt scotch. Leo, thoroughly impressed, watched him. Once the ordering was done and conversation resumed, his inner foodie emerged. He praised Jax's taste, noting that the salt-crusted sea bass was a local legend, unmatched in the entire state. Caleb had initially planned to pay, but as he'd heard Jax list each dish, he'd been mentally tallying the prices. The final sum made his stomach clench. He muttered under his breath, asking if the fish really swam in imported mineral water. Leo corrected him, explaining with a grin that this particular fish was supposedly line-caught by moonlight. The preparation was an elaborate process involving a specific weight of sea salt and a dual-stage cooking method. Whether it was the chef's skill or the fish itself, as the dishes began to arrive, Leo fell silent, dedicating his full attention to the meal. Jax, too, was clearly enjoying the food. Only Caleb, burdened by his thoughts, barely touched his plate. He deeply regretted going along with Jax's impulsive idea. This one meal would cost him more than half a month's salary. During the meal, Leo excused himself to use the restroom. Jax turned to Caleb and asked if the food wasn't to his liking, noting that he hadn't eaten much. He placed a piece of sea bass on Caleb's plate, telling him it was genuinely excellent and that he should try it. Caleb had no appetite. He leaned in and whispered, questioning if the restaurant had embedded the cost of its decor into every item on the menu. The prices felt extortionate. Jax just smiled. He explained that Leo was right. The fish was special, hence its delicate texture and high price. A waiter walked by, and Caleb held his tongue. Once the waiter was out of earshot, he stared down at the piece of fish on his plate. Jax found his expression amusing but said nothing. After a moment, Caleb sighed, took a tiny bite, and remarked that he couldn't taste the difference between moonlight-caught fish and regular fish. But he was certainly feeling the pressure of being put on the spot. His thoughts then turned to Jax's earlier claim of being older. He looked at him and asked when he had turned 30. He pointed out that Jax was only 28. Jax justified it as rounding up. He couldn't help but laugh at Caleb's serious expression. After a moment, he leaned back, draping an arm over Caleb's chair and propping his head on his other hand. He looked at Caleb intently. He told him not to compare himself to a fish on display, then added that for a man, 28 or 30 were both prime years, making no difference to him. Caleb shook his head and accused him of taking advantage. Jax countered by asking how a simple title was taking advantage, pointing out that he was 3 years older than Caleb, yet Caleb had never once called him bro. As he spoke, some other thought seemed to cross his mind. He continued to gaze at Caleb, a smile playing on his lips, but the look in his eyes deepened into something more intense. Caleb felt a jolt. He became acutely aware of their posture. Jax was casually invading his space, his arm resting behind him. They were sitting incredibly close. Jax's focused gaze, combined with the faint scent of scotch drifting between them, created an atmosphere thick with unspoken intimacy. Caleb subtly shifted away, his relief palpable when he saw Leo returning in the distance. In the end, Jax paid the bill. Leo had tried to call the waiter first, but Jax had a house account, his membership allowing him to simply sign his name, bypassing the need for a card altogether. Leo didn't argue, instead graciously suggesting that the next one was on him, making Jax promise to attend. Then, he and Caleb decided to head back to their apartment. Sharing a cab, Leo reflected on the evening, remarking on the vast difference between people. He noted that Jax looked about their age but was already a VIP at a place like the Gilded Cage. They were just customers, he was an honored guest. Leo continued, musing that after a night of drinking, they had to hail a cab while Jax likely had a private driver. He understood then why women were so drawn to wealthy, established men. The comfort and ease of that life were undeniably attractive. He finished his thought with a small laugh and rolled down the window to let in the fresh air. A gentle spring breeze, carrying the scent of flowers and trees, filled the car. Caleb remained silent, his eyes closed. He took a deep, quiet breath of the cool air, but his mind was replaying the image of Jax's face from earlier, the intense, focused expression in his eyes. Just as the project in Leo's department was wrapping up, Caleb faced his own month-end performance review. His sales had seen a modest increase, and his salary and bonus reflected it. Although he was still among the lower earners in his department, it was a sign of progress, and it had earned him a sliver of confidence from his manager. The manager called him in for a private meeting, meticulously pointing out a few of his recent mistakes. He then hinted that the department was undergoing restructuring. The position of junior associate, which Caleb held, was seen as redundant with other roles and might be eliminated to streamline management. This meant the current associates would either be demoted to sales support or promoted to be his personal executive assistant. The manager already had a long-serving personal assistant who handled his daily life and travel. A new assistant would be tasked with attending high-stakes meetings, entertaining clients, and acting as a part-time driver. It would be an exhausting role, but the compensation would be on another level entirely. Caleb understood the implication. He was a strong candidate for the promotion, provided he delivered another solid month. A surge of excitement coursed through him. Having previously clashed with the senior sales staff, a demotion would be humiliating. But a direct promotion to the manager's assistant would be like winning the lottery, given his limited experience. He made a silent vow to himself. This month, he would be flawless. No mistakes, no laziness. He would anticipate the manager's every need. Fueled by this newfound determination, he looked at his list of clients. Suddenly, each name seemed to have a $sign attached to it. The crude, arrogant, and difficult personalities he had once dreaded were now just numbers on a balance sheet. During rare moments of downtime, Caleb reflected on his transformation. At first, these clients were his obstacles, and he feared them. Then they became his customers, and he catered to them. Later, they were his paycheck, and he dealt with them professionally. Now, they were stepping stones. He no longer needed to focus on any single one. nor waste emotional energy on their whims. His job was to process them in bulk, treat them all the same, discard the unproductive ones, and constantly add new, valuable contacts. This change had been subtle yet swift. Perhaps Leo was right. Sometimes only the result matters. The process, the circumstances, and the people involved were all subject to change. There was never just one path to a goal. Lately, Caleb found himself thinking of Jax with surprising frequency, yet his calls and texts to him grew fewer and farther between. At first, Jax was puzzled, calling to complain and asking if he was really that busy. Caleb would agree, sometimes explaining the pressure he was under at work. Eventually, his responses became excuses. A department dinner, Leo having friends over, a visit to his mother's. 8 out of 10 were lies. The simple truth was that he was avoiding Jax. He was terrified to admit that he was developing feelings for him. Fortunately, it was just a small flicker of emotion. For now, he recalled standing on that crosswalk with Jax, hearing fragments of his chaotic phone calls. Men and women, voices happy or hurt. It made him reconsider Leo's words. In the end, maybe people weren't so different after all. When he was truly naive, he had believed he understood the world perfectly. He despised hypocrisy, pitted those who clawed their way up, envied the young and successful, and looked down on the materialistic. He had categorized everyone around him, setting himself apart, believing that regardless of his financial situation, he was fundamentally different. But looking at himself now, he saw no difference. He could be hypocritical, he was scheming to climb the ladder, and he was drawn to wealth and status. And he was developing something akin to a crush on Jax. He knew, however, that it was only akin to a crush. Of all the things that attracted him to Jax, money was a significant factor. Perhaps the biggest factor. If Jax were just a handsome, down-to-earth guy working in a factory or a restaurant, Caleb imagined they could be friends, sharing laughs over a cheap meal. But he would never have felt that jolt, that intense desire to be closer, to possess. Of course, he wasn't the only one who felt that way. The men and women on Jax's phone, in all their variety, proved that. And if he put himself in Jax's shoes, his attitude toward them was likely no different from Caleb's current attitude toward his clients. No need to focus on any single one, no emotional investment. Just process them in bulk, discard the old, and bring in the new and interesting. The realization was both chilling and, strangely, a relief. Caleb had no desire to be one of Jax's options, nor did he want to be controlled by these emotions. He decided to follow Leo's advice and try to meet more people. A suitable boyfriend would be ideal, but it was easier said than done. The pressure at work was a sword hanging over his head, keeping him in a constant state of anxiety. After attending a few social gatherings, he changed his mind again. If forced to choose between love and security, he would choose security every time. Security kept you alive. As the old saying went, you can only think about romance on a full stomach. Love and intimacy were just optional luxuries. In the following days, Caleb threw himself entirely into his work. He spent his days updating schedules, writing reports, and making endless calls and emails to clients. He no longer took their rejections or ridicule to heart. His only focus was on getting results. More often than not, he was the last one to leave the office building. His current drive was different from when he first started. He felt like he had endless energy and not enough time. Soon, however, he noticed that the other junior associates were also pushing hard. They had been there longer, had better relationships with the sales team, and their client portfolios were far more promising than his collection of small accounts. A new wave of anxiety washed over him. Mid-month, while on a call trying to schedule a meeting with a client, he felt a sharp, stinging pain on his lip. In the restroom mirror, he discovered that stress had caused a painful cluster of cold sores to erupt overnight. Fortunately, that afternoon, one of his long-standing clients finally placed an order. Caleb quickly faxed over the contract. With his sales quota now secured for the month, he asked his manager for time off to see a doctor. He then withdrew some cash to give to his sister, Sarah, for her living expenses. His visits to Sarah had become less frequent. Initially, he went every other day. As work got busier, it became twice a week. This past month, it had dwindled to once a week. His mother couldn't help but complain, asking if his job was really that demanding. She pointed out that the house needed constant attention and that while she didn't expect him to be there all the time, a couple of visits a week shouldn't be too much to ask. She recounted how the bathroom pipe had burst last Friday, spraying water everywhere. She had been home alone, struggling to manage the leak and a crying baby, unable to find the main shut-off valve. Caleb hadn't known. He immediately asked about the situation and offered to buy a new pipe and fix it. His mother told him that if she had waited for him, the entire floor would have been ruined. It was Sarah's boss from the bakery who had come over and fixed it. Sarah's boss, according to his mother, was a very kind man. Caleb had heard her praise him more than once. The man apparently admired Sarah's work ethic and was sympathetic to her situation as a single mother. He often let her leave early and gave her leftover cake trimmings. Sarah, being resourceful, would turn the excess cream into small cupcakes and the extra butter and powdered milk into fried milk balls. She and her son, Finn, couldn't eat it all, so she would often share the treats with her boss and his wife. Caleb felt a wave of relief. But then his mother, noticing the cold sores on his lip, began to fret. She warned him not to work so hard and to avoid shellfish. Caleb's thoughts, however, were elsewhere. He asked with a puzzled expression how Sarah's boss had ended up at their house. His mother explained that she had called him, of course. She described the man as a good person, saying he had even come back the next day to check on the pipe and clean the range hood. Caleb said nothing, but he made a mental note to ask Sarah about it later. When he finally got a chance, Sarah tried to reassure him, telling him not to listen to their mom. She insisted they were fine and that he had enough on his plate without worrying about them. Caleb cut her off, asking directly what had happened with the pipe. Sarah explained it was probably just old. But how did her boss get involved? The bakery was on the other side of the complex. Caleb pressed her, asking if their mom had run all the way over there to get him. Why not just call building maintenance? Sarah hesitated. Seeing the serious look on Caleb's face, she finally explained that their mom hadn't run to the bakery. She paused, then lowered her voice, admitting that her boss had been dropping her off that day. Their mom, in a panic, had seen them from the window and called out for help. After she finished, Sarah kept her gaze lowered, her posture tense. Free from her tumultuous marriage, Sarah did seem better, despite the long hours standing at the bakery. The sharp anxiety that once defined her features had softened, replaced by a maternal glow. Her skin looked healthier, and she carried the faint, sweet scent of cream. Caleb had been considering this possibility for a while. Seeing his sister's transformation, he hesitated, but finally he had to say it. He told Sarah to be careful. Sarah looked up, startled. Caleb continued, explaining that as a single mother, she was vulnerable to gossip. If her boss were single, it might be different, but their mother had mentioned he was a newlywed. Sarah interrupted him, her voice firm. She knew. She looked at her son, and her expression softened again. She spoke quietly, her hands gently holding the child's. She insisted she had no romantic interest in her boss. Despite the divorce and her deep disappointment in her ex-husband, she wasn't ready to move on. let alone with a married man. Caleb was taken aback and remained silent. Sarah continued, saying the boss and his wife were very happy together. His kindness toward her, she believed, stemmed from a sense of pity for a woman in a difficult situation, which in turn gave him a sense of satisfaction. That's why he helped without expecting anything in return and had never crossed any lines. She sighed and fell silent for a moment before admitting that she knew she should refuse his help, that she should keep her distance. But sometimes, she was just so tired. She couldn't confide in their mother without making her cry, and she couldn't burden Caleb, whose own life was already so difficult. The bitterness, exhaustion, and loneliness didn't just disappear because she ignored them. So when someone offered a helping hand, she couldn't always turn it away. Caleb waited a moment before responding. The cold sores on his lip throbbed, a dull ache radiating to his temples. He told her that there had to be boundaries. He was speaking as much to himself as to her. He continued, saying that what doesn't belong to you will never be yours. If you need to rely on someone, either rely on yourself or find someone suitable for a lasting solution. After he said it, Caleb felt his words might have been too harsh. Their mother should have been the one to notice this, but from the sound of it, she was proud of the attention. It was a frustrating situation. He got his prescription and headed home. That evening, Leo returned to the apartment and was startled by the sight of Caleb's face. Seeing his friend's exhausted state, he joked about whether applying the ointment had worn him out and offered to help. Caleb, lacking any energy, summed up his day with 2 words: family drama. Leo knew Caleb's mother and sister were in town and that his sister was divorced with a child. Since Caleb rarely discussed his family, Leo simply offered a sympathetic smile. He picked up the medication from Caleb's nightstand, noting both oral and topical treatments. He repeated his offer to apply the ointment for him, suggesting it would be better absorbed before he fell asleep and accidentally ingested it. Caleb, knowing Leo's penchant for cleanliness, declined, saying he would do it himself after he finished reading a couple of pages. Leo peered over his shoulder, asking what he was reading. Caleb, holding a finger to his sore lip, explained that he was looking at job postings for his sister. He felt that changing her job was the quickest solution. He hadn't discussed it with Sarah yet, afraid he wouldn't find anything suitable. Leo thought for a moment and asked if his sister knew how to use a cash register. Caleb looked at him. Leo explained that his family's pie shop needed a cashier. He could help out after his own work, but they were short-staffed during the day. He had been meaning to put up a hiring sign but hadn't gotten around to it. Caleb's eyes lit up. He quickly said that being a cashier was exactly what she did at the bakery. Then, not wanting to put Leo in a difficult position, he added that she could come in for a trial day. If it didn't work out, there would be no hard feelings. Leo nodded, suggesting they schedule it for sometime the following week. Caleb eagerly agreed. He started to smile, but the movement pulled at his cold sores, and he winced in pain, covering his mouth. The sores, which had appeared so suddenly, healed just as quickly. After 4 or 5 days of medication, Caleb was mostly better. He called Sarah in the middle of a bright afternoon to tell her about the trial shift at the pie shop, but the call went straight to voicemail. Assuming she was busy at work, he changed his clothes and started to head over to her place. Just as he was leaving his apartment building, his phone rang. It was Jax. Jax's voice was urgent. He said Caleb needed to get to his mother's place right away. The landlord had called him, saying there was a huge fight. He paused, then changed his mind, telling Caleb to stay put. He was nearby and would pick him up. Caleb was already processing the news. He shouted into the phone that it wasn't necessary, that he could get there himself. Jax yelled back, asking if he wasn't in a hurry. Caleb, already running down the stairs, explained that the bus stop was right outside his building. It was only a few stops away, and it would take Jax longer to get to him. He told him not to come. Jax insisted, saying he was only 5 minutes away, then corrected himself to 4. He was already on his way. Caleb, in a panic, spotted a bus pulling up and yelled that his bus was here and he was getting on. He tried to mimic the sound of a transit card beep. Jax's voice was firm. He gave him 5 minutes to wait right where he was. If Caleb wasn't there, he would drive straight to his mother's apartment and wait for him there. His tone then shifted, an edge of frustration creeping in as he growled, "Caleb, damn it. I know you've been avoiding me." It was the first time Jax had ever raised his voice at him, but after the outburst, he seemed to lose some of his conviction. After all, Caleb always answered his calls and replied to his texts. The idea that he was being avoided was just a feeling. But when his shout was met with complete silence from Caleb's end, Jax froze. He took that silence as a confirmation. Staring at the red light in front of him, Jax checked his phone's screen. The call was still active. He could faintly hear Caleb's breathing. He felt a surge of irritation. For safety's sake, he hung up and took a shortcut, managing to pull up in front of Caleb just within the 5-minute window. Caleb was waiting downstairs, looking slightly embarrassed when Jax's car arrived. He was saved from the awkward moment by a call from Leo, who was asking if his sister could come in the next day. He explained he wouldn't be at the shop but would let the manager know. Caleb opened the car door and slid in. Unsure of the situation at his mother's, he couldn't give a definite answer. He hesitated, then asked Leo if he could confirm with him later that evening. Leo agreed but asked him not to be too late, as he had to go home for the night. He then mentioned that there were dumplings he'd brought back in the fridge. He suggested Caleb could pan-fry them for dinner. Caleb was surprised, remembering he had only casually mentioned craving pan-fried dumplings a few days ago. Leo just laughed, saying the dumplings had a sweet peanut filling that would be easy on his mouth. Jax didn't start the car. He just sat there, turned sideways, watching Caleb. Caleb, feeling the pressure to get going but not wanting to be rude to Leo, glanced at Jax and nodded toward the steering wheel. When Jax didn't move, Caleb poked his arm while quickly ending the call. As soon as he hung up, Jax spoke, his voice laced with complaint. He asked why he was always on the phone. Didn't he have an emergency to get to? Wasn't he worried about his sister? Caleb, who had been bracing for an awkward conversation, felt his own temper flare. He retorted that being worried wouldn't do any good while he was stuck in Jax's car. Jax countered, arguing that Caleb should have at least said he was ready to go. What if the person on the phone had another emergency and needed him to turn back? It wasn't the first time Caleb had seen Jax angry, nor the first time they had argued. But this time, Jax's presence was so overwhelming that Caleb was left speechless. He instantly regretted waiting for him. He glanced at the time on his phone. If he had taken the bus, he'd be halfway there by now. He looked at the back of Jax's head and suggested mildly that maybe he should take a moment to calm down. He added that the next bus was coming soon, and perhaps he should just... Jax cut him off, his voice tight. "Just buckle your seatbelt." A moment later, as if realizing his own petulance, he grumbled, trying to save face, "You're so annoying. Don't you follow traffic laws?" Caleb didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Anxious about his sister, he quickly agreed, murmuring a string of yes, you're right. The drive to Sarah's apartment was short. On the way, Jax filled him in. The landlord had gone to check on the property and walked into a heated argument. Since Jax had arranged the rental, the landlord called him directly. He hadn't given many details, but his dissatisfaction was clear. He had told Jax that the building was mostly owner-occupied, a community of longtime neighbors, and that while it was his property, he had to consider their feelings when renting it out. He couldn't just let anyone live there. Jax, not knowing the full story but feeling protective, had replied that his relatives weren't the type to live just anywhere and demanded to know what was happening. Sensing Jax's defensive tone, the landlord had changed his approach, sighing and suggesting Jax just come and see for himself, saying things were getting physical. As they pulled up to the building, Caleb jumped out of the car and looked up. The window to Sarah's apartment was wide open, a corner of the floral curtain flapping in the wind. His stomach dropped. That meant there were outsiders in the house. He rushed inside. When he saw Jax following him, he hesitated and asked if he could wait in the car. He had a good guess as to what was happening. It was likely the bakery owner's wife or her family. The scene would be ugly, the words even uglier. He didn't want Jax to hear his family being insulted, nor did he want him involved in their messy affairs. But Jax just asked him if he knew what was going on up there. How many people? Were his mother and sister okay? Could he handle it alone? Caleb couldn't answer. Jax walked past him toward the elevator. Inside, he told Caleb that he was stubborn and always tried to handle everything himself. He was polite to strangers but saved his temper for his own people. He stopped himself before adding that Caleb only seemed to need him when it was convenient. Now that they were friends, he was always being pushed away. He wanted to call him ungrateful, but the timing felt wrong, and the words didn't seem quite right, so he held his tongue. Caleb, however, was thinking that he truly had no idea how to handle this. In his eyes, his family was in the wrong. The situation upstairs was indeed dire. As they stepped out of the elevator, they saw the area in front of Sarah's door was a mess. A smashed cake lay on the floor, cream splattered everywhere. A large smear on the door suggested it had been thrown there first. A neighbor peeked out from a cracked open door. Caleb was knocking when he noticed the neighbor. He managed a strained, apologetic smile, but before he could say anything, Jax shot a cold, menacing glare in that direction. The neighbor quickly retreated, and the door slammed shut. At the same time, the lock on Sarah's door clicked open. Their mother stood there, her face etched with panic. Seeing Caleb and the tall, imposing friend behind him, her eyes reddened. She turned back into the living room and said that they had gone too far. Caleb and Jax stepped inside. The floor was littered with broken cups and plates. The slipcover had been ripped off the sofa and lay in heaps. For strangers stood in the middle of the room. A man was smoking, his brow furrowed. He glanced at Caleb before looking away. The woman next to him, along with two others sitting on the sofa, glared at Caleb. Sarah stood near the entrance, her arms crossed. She looked over her shoulder when the door opened, then turned away again. One of the women on the sofa sneered, asking if they had called for backup. Sarah's voice was cold as she replied that she had nothing to hide. She repeated what she had said before. Her conscience was clear. If they were going to accuse her, they needed proof. The woman shot back, yelling that they didn't need proof when the whole building had seen them holding hands and embracing. She told Sarah that if she was going to cheat, she should have picked someone who wasn't her son-in-law. Caleb's face hardened. He had intended to resolve this calmly, assuming his family was at fault, but the woman's words were too much. He snapped that she needed to watch her mouth. He told them that if they had a valid complaint, they could state it reasonably. If not, they should be quiet. He reminded them that there were police and courts to handle disputes, and they had no right to storm into his home. He pointed at the mess on the floor and warned them to stop before they had to pay for every last broken item. The room fell silent. The woman who had been shouting seemed to reconsider. Caleb turned to Sarah, his voice low and firm, and demanded to know what had happened. Sarah bit her lip, her expression resolute. She stated again, word by word, that she had done nothing wrong. Their mother, who had been hiding in the background, rushed forward, defending them. She explained that Sarah had wanted to quit her job at the bakery and that she had advised her to work a few more days to give them time to find a replacement. She lamented that their kindness had been met with such aggression. Suddenly, Jax, who had been quiet, spoke up. He looked at their mother and asked if they had been hurt. Sarah didn't answer, but their mother said that she had been pushed and had hurt her back. The man who had been smoking muttered that it wasn't intentional. Before he could finish, there was a loud bang. Jax had moved with startling speed, grabbing the man by the collar and slamming him down onto the coffee table. The sound of the impact mingled with the man's cry of pain. Before anyone could react, Jax hauled him up and threw him against the wall. Caleb was stunned. Jax had thrown the man with such force it looked like he was trying to kill him. The man's scream was choked with terror. The other women, snapping out of their shock, began to shriek. The one standing, presumably the man's wife, lunged at Jax. The other two, too scared to intervene, just slapped their thighs and yelled that he was a murderer. Jax held the man pinned against the wall by his neck. He turned and gave the wife a chilling smile. He told her he had no qualms about hitting women and warned her to stay back. The woman froze, her eyes darting between her struggling husband and the terrifying stranger. Jax told her that if she was scared, she should call the police. The other woman fumbled for her phone. Jax added that she should be sure to mention that they had started the fight, lost, and were now afraid. He gestured to the mess, saying the evidence was all there. The woman, realizing he was mocking her, pointed a trembling finger at him and accused him of being a bully. She shouted that they would go to the hospital and get checked for injuries. Jax agreed, saying his mother-in-law had also been hurt and would need a full examination. He told them both families should get their money ready. He then tightened his grip on the man's neck and said with a lazy smile that an elderly woman's injuries could be serious. Aches, pains, heart palpitations. They would be responsible for all of it. He, on the other hand, had plenty of money and was happy to get his fill before settling up. He hadn't given any of them a second glance since he'd walked in, and his sudden violence made it clear he wasn't someone to be trifled with. The family was stunned. They looked at Jax, at his simple but well-made white shirt, the sleeves rolled up his forearms, the designer belt at his waist. He was nothing like Sarah's family. He was clearly a local and a dangerous one at that. The man being held finally broke, begging that it was all a misunderstanding. Jax crushed the cigarette butt on the floor with his foot and looked at Caleb. Caleb understood. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding and announced that if it was a misunderstanding, they would clear it up right there. He stated that he would not let his family be bullied, but he also wouldn't bully others unfairly. They would lay everything out on the table and discuss it. The situation was brought under control, but both sides stuck to their stories. The confrontation ended in a stalemate, with a fragile truce declared. As Caleb escorted the family out, he exchanged a few perfunctory apologies in the hallway. When he returned, his mother was already in tears, complaining to Jax about how they had been treated. Seeing Caleb, her grief intensified. But Caleb didn't look at her. He asked where Sarah was. She was in the other room where her son, Finn, had just woken up. Just then, Sarah emerged from the bedroom. "Caleb," she began, but his face was like stone. Before Jax could react, Caleb raised his hand and slapped Sarah across the face. The room fell silent. Sarah stood frozen, her hand to her cheek. Their mother rushed over, pulling at Caleb's arm, crying and asking why he would hit his sister after everything they had been through that day. Caleb ignored her, his eyes fixed on Sarah. He had told her, he said, that if she acted with integrity, he would defend her to the death. But this involved a married man, a situation that demanded discretion. He stared at her and asked if she could honestly say she had done nothing wrong. His mother frantically tried to intervene, asking what she could have possibly done wrong. Was it a crime to want to quit her job? Why did he believe strangers over his own sister? Sarah, holding her cheek, finally spoke, her voice thick with tears. "I did nothing wrong. At least not today." She explained that he was the one who insisted on helping. He was the one who asked for the cake. She had delivered it in broad daylight, in front of his wife, and had not even stepped inside. He had grabbed her hand as she was leaving. She had been shocked, but she had left immediately. She couldn't understand why they had shown up at her door hours later. The siblings had relied on each other for years and had never spoken a harsh word to one another. Caleb's accusation, on top of the day's events, was too much. Tears streamed down her face. She asked why she was being blamed for everything. Was it because she was divorced? Because she was a woman? Caleb's chest felt tight. He finally nodded. He told her it was because she was the victim, just like the woman last year who had also thought her husband had initiated everything. He asked her to think back and honestly say if she believed that woman had been blameless. His words hit their mark. Overwhelmed with shame and anger, Sarah turned and ran back into her room. Their mother paced frantically, knocking on the door, her pleas mixing with the sound of the crying child. The apartment was filled with chaos. Caleb looked around at the trashed room, the footprints on the rug, the child's playmat kicked aside. He knew the other party had been looking for a fight, but their aggressive, coordinated attack meant that regardless of the truth, Sarah had been branded as a homewrecker. He was filled with a helpless rage at the man for pursuing his sister and then abandoning her to take the blame, at his mother and sister for their lack of foresight, and ultimately at himself. The chaos in the room mirrored the chaos in his life. It was all a fragile facade, easily shattered by the slightest provocation. He stood there for a long time, then rubbed his right hand and walked out. Jax immediately followed him down the stairs and out of the building. He stopped him, asking where he was going. Caleb didn't answer. Jax suggested a walk on the beach. He then grabbed Caleb's arm and guided him to the car. Riverbend City bordered the ocean on its eastern side, with a narrow, man-made stretch of sand for public use. Caleb stared out the window the entire drive, lost in thought. When Jax parked and tried to pull him out, he resisted, saying he didn't want to go. Jax clicked his tongue, asking if he was really going to refuse after he'd driven all the way there. Caleb shook his head, pulling his hand back and muttering that the sand would get in his shoes. Jax coaxed him, saying they wouldn't take their shoes off. He then told Caleb with a perfectly straight face that he had found a pearl there last time. He pointed to a spot in the distance, claiming that someone must have buried it. He explained it was a game students played, burying things for others to find. He'd even seen them bury a person once. Caleb looked at him, trying to tell if he was serious. He asked if they ever dug the person out. Jax laughed, saying no. The kids had buried their friend and run off. The buried person had to dig himself out, cursing the whole way. Seeing Caleb's disbelief, Jax insisted it was true, adding that he had given the guy a ride back to campus. Caleb finally believed him, but turned away, remarking that Jax seemed to spend a lot of his time minding other people's business. Jax just smiled and pulled him along, telling him to come help look for more treasures. At first, Caleb felt awkward. He hadn't played such a childish game since he was a boy. The beach was dotted with people enjoying the warm weekend evening. But as he watched Jax roll up his pants and start digging in earnest, his curiosity got the better of him. He tentatively reached down and scooped up a handful of sand. It was warm and dry from the sun. Jax watched him, silently digging, completely absorbed. The setting sun cast a golden light over everything. The beach was filled with the sounds of laughter and conversation, but around Caleb, there was a profound stillness. Jax felt an urge to be closer to him. He moved over, noticing how the light shimmered on his skin, on his hair, on his hands. He reached out and covered Caleb's hand with his own, asking what he was digging for. Caleb looked up, and the evening light caught in his eyes, making them sparkle. He showed Jax a small pile of colorful shards, explaining they were just broken pieces of something. He tried to pull his hand away, saying he wanted to find the rest so no one would get cut. Jax reluctantly let go, rubbing his thumb and forefinger together. He said the beach cleaners would get it later and told him to be careful not to cut himself. Despite his words, he joined in, and soon they had a small collection of smooth, white porcelain fragments. Caleb, caught up in the moment, began to piece them together. It seemed to be a hollow porcelain nesting doll, painted with the smiling face of a traditional clown, its eyes long and thin. For a moment, he was mesmerized. Then he and Jax gathered the pieces and threw them in a nearby trash can. On the drive back, Jax grew nostalgic. He told Caleb he'd made his first real money selling nesting dolls like that one, over a decade ago. They were a novelty in Riverbend City back then. He'd buy them cheap from a supplier up north and sell them at a huge markup, claiming they were authentic Russian imports. People believed him, and some even resold them in their own boutiques. Caleb smiled, remarking on how clever he was. He then added that he had once received one as a gift, a 7-layer wooden set, also supposedly from Russia. He had kept it on his nightstand for years, but one day it just disappeared, and he never had the heart to tell the person who gave it to him. Jack suggested he just buy a new one, then asked who had given it to him. Caleb looked down, a faint smile on his lips. An old boyfriend. He said it wouldn't be the same. Jax just said oh and fell silent. He rolled down the window, and the warm evening breeze filled the car. The wind seemed to clear some of the darkness from Caleb's mind. He propped his arm on the door, watching the evening commuters heading home, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and relief. "Thank you for your help today," Caleb said suddenly, his gaze still fixed on the world outside. He admitted that he was a sensitive and insecure person, and that if he had tried to handle the situation on his own, it would not have ended so well. Jax understood. He told Caleb that in a situation like that, he shouldn't have confronted his sister first. When outsiders show up, the first priority is to present a united front. To show them that his family is not to be messed with, that he, as the brother, would protect them no matter what. That's how you gain control. If he didn't stand by his sister, who would? Caleb rubbed his face. "You're right. He trailed off, unable to continue. After a while, he said that he had always believed that as long as he did the right thing, his conscience would be clear regardless of what others did. He expected the same from everyone else. When Sarah got divorced, even his boss's assistant had said they should sue the ex-husband for everything he had. But Caleb had wondered if Sarah's constant sending of money home had contributed to their problems. Today, when those people caused a scene, he was angry, but a part of him felt they were justified because his family was partly at fault. At work, when he was undermined or his pay was docked, he would always find fault in himself first. Jax glanced at him and shook his head, remarking that he had too much patience. Caleb smiled sadly. It's not patience, and it's not responsibility. It's just a willingness to compromise. I'm weak. He sighed, then added that Sarah's actions had indeed been inappropriate. He had hit her not just for this incident, but because he was afraid for her future. She would meet all sorts of people, and using her gender to gain sympathy or advantages was not a sustainable path. You have to respect yourself first to maintain your principles. Jax listened thoughtfully. He told Caleb he was right, but that no one can do everything on their own. Caleb agreed, saying that you either rely on friends or find a compatible partner. No one does anything for free. The return just isn't always monetary. Jax had other plans that evening, so he dropped Caleb off at a crossroads. Instead of going home, Caleb found a real estate agency. Although they could technically stay in the apartment, today's incident would undoubtedly fuel gossip among the neighbors. He didn't want Sarah to have to face that, but finding a suitable place was proving difficult. Apartments of a similar size were now much more expensive, and the affordable ones were either dark and damp or in unsafe neighborhoods. After visiting several agencies, he felt his anxiety rising. He then remembered he still had to call Leo. Leo was understanding, pushing back the trial date for Sarah by a few days. He reminded Caleb that he wasn't doing this just as a favor. The shop really needed help. He asked him to confirm by Wednesday at the latest. He then added that he'd forgotten to mention the salary. The previous cashier had made $2,600 a month, but that was 6 months ago. With the rising cost of living, he was offering $2,900 with lunch provided. Caleb readily agreed. The salary was almost double what Sarah was making at the bakery. With that, their budget for a new apartment increased significantly, and he felt a renewed sense of hope. As his mind settled, he thought back to his conversation with Jax. Half of what he had said about Sarah was also about himself. He wondered if Jax had noticed or understood. Some debts, once incurred, couldn't be repaid with money. There was a question he hadn't dared to ask, afraid of the answer, afraid of being seen as presumptuous. The next morning, Caleb took his ID and some cash and went to Sarah's. His mother was making breakfast. Sarah, holding her son, opened the door. They both froze. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying, and a faint bruise was visible on her cheek. Caleb hesitated, then said that he had been too rough yesterday. Sarah didn't speak, just carried the baby into her room. She emerged again at breakfast. Their mother tried to smooth things over, saying that siblings fight and that they'd had worse fights as kids. She reminded Sarah of the time she had stolen money and blamed it on Caleb, getting him in trouble. Sarah just mumbled in agreement. As their mother was about to say more, Sarah spoke up, stating that she wasn't angry with her brother. Caleb looked at her. Sarah served him a bowl of oatmeal, carefully picking out the nuts, and handed it to him. She said she knew he was looking out for her. She met his gaze and explained that she was still upset about what had happened. She had gone to quit her job to distance herself from her boss. He was the one who insisted she make one last cake. She had delivered it during the day with his wife present. She had quit at the same time. There had been no private meetings, no inappropriate behavior. She had been just as shocked when he grabbed her hand. But the principle was what mattered. As a divorced woman, her silence would be interpreted in countless ways to fit the narrative people wanted. For that, she said, the slap was justified. Caleb was speechless. He finally managed to say that as long as she understood. He then told her about the cashier job at his colleague's pie shop, offering a salary of $2,900 plus one meal a day. Sarah's spirits lifted immediately. He then brought up the apartment, pointing out its flaws, The poor security, the noisy neighbors, to avoid making her feel like a burden. His mother agreed, and they decided to move. The issue was the 6-month lease they had prepaid, which Jax had helped them secure. Caleb had no choice but to call him again. Jax told him he had anticipated this. He said they didn't need to look for a new place. He had an empty apartment they could use. Caleb was shocked and immediately refused. Jax, sounding half asleep, mumbled that it was nothing special, a place Caleb had been to before. When Caleb asked where, Jax sleepily reminded him of his mother's old place, the one where Caleb had accused him of not paying for services rendered. The memory made Caleb's ears burn. He asked about the rent. He remembered the apartment was spacious and sunny, in a good location. It would be expensive to rent. Jax insisted they didn't need to pay, that it had been empty for a while. He then added, as if sensing Caleb's hesitation, that he shouldn't overthink it. There would be no strings attached. The apartment was indeed dusty from being vacant for so long. Jax drove them over. As he unlocked the door, he told them to clean up as they saw fit. The guest room was ready to use, but the master bedroom would need new linens. Their mother, who had been impressed by Jax's assertiveness during the fight, was now slightly intimidated by him and just nodded in agreement. Moving was a hassle. They had accumulated a lot of things, and their mother insisted on packing her own belongings. So, Caleb stayed behind to clean the new place while Sarah and their mother went back to pack. As Caleb worked, Jax, with nothing to do, leaned over Finn's crib, gently poking the sleeping baby's ear. Caleb, taking a break, told him to stop, afraid he would wake the baby. Jax nonchalantly asked why the baby's hair was so light. Caleb guessed it was due to poor nutrition, as Sarah herself was so thin. Jax remarked that it was good the baby wasn't sickly, that he knew how to spare his mother worry. He then added that it was a shame she was a girl. Boys were easier. You just had to feed them and keep them alive, and they could eventually provide for the family. He glanced at Caleb, then changed his mind, saying that raising any child was a pain. Caleb ignored his rambling and continued cleaning. He cleared the coffee table, packed away trinkets, and moved dead plants outside. He threw the dusty sheets and slipcovers into the washing machine. In a short time, the cluttered, dusty apartment was transformed into a clean, welcoming home. Jax watched him, impressed, and asked if he had always been so domestic. Caleb, tired but pleased with his work, replied that he enjoyed cleaning because the results were immediate and satisfying. He then brought up the rent again, saying they couldn't live there for free and asking Jax to set a price. Jax frowned, reminding him they had already discussed this. Caleb patiently explained that friendship was a two-way street, and so far Jax had been the only one giving. Just then, the moving truck arrived. As Jax got up to help, he finally relented, saying he would think about it. With his family settled, Caleb turned his attention back to work. Sarah's trial at the pie shop was a success. Leo praised her to Caleb, saying she was just as responsible as him, but tougher and more decisive. As the month drew to a close, Caleb's performance had not improved much beyond that one small contract. The other associates were catching up. He knew the manager's vague promises were just a tactic to motivate everyone. He grew anxious. His old methods weren't working. His gentle approach had made his clients complacent. He needed to create a sense of urgency. He realized his weakness. He hated the whining and dining culture of sales. He had even ignored a client's hint about the attractive women in Riverbend City. Now, desperate, he saw it as his only option. He made a few calls and, to his surprise, secured 2 dinner meetings. Leo was neutral about his plan but warned him not to go alone. Caleb invited a friendly colleague and carefully chose his outfit. The suit he had worn for his interview last year was perfect. A good brand, but with slight wear at the cuffs, giving the impression that he was wearing his very best for the occasion. When he tried it on, he noticed he had gained a little weight. He smiled at his reflection. A year ago, overwhelmed by family debt, he had been lost and desperate. Now he was strategic, even using his clothes to his advantage. The dinner was at Starlight, a well-known upscale restaurant. The client, Mr. Wang, arrived late but was very cordial. Caleb, having done his research, steered the conversation toward Mr. Wang's newborn daughter and his interest in health and wellness. The mood was relaxed until they got down to business. Mr. Wang became hesitant. Caleb appealed to his emotions, speaking of the desire of every man to provide for his family and make them proud. He then asked for an honest answer about when the contract might be signed. Mr. Wang sighed and revealed that another associate from Caleb's company, a young man named Morgan, had also been in touch and had offered him a better deal. Caleb's heart sank, but he kept his composure. He praised Morgan's enthusiasm but hinted at his inexperience, assuring Mr. Wang that any official company discount would be available to him as well, implying Morgan's offer might not be legitimate. He then poured himself a glass of whiskey and toasted Mr. Wang, downing it in one go. The gesture broke the ice, but it also opened the floodgates. Several drinks later, Mr. Wang finally relented, promising that if Caleb could secure the best possible deal from his company, he would sign with him. When Caleb asked if he could confirm it with his manager the next day, the intoxicated Mr. Wang agreed, saying if Caleb could get it done tomorrow, he would sign tomorrow. Caleb's heart pounded. He wanted to nail down the exact time, but he restrained himself. After dinner, he and his colleague took Mr. Wang to a nearby spa, paying for a massage package. His colleague was impressed, surprised by his high tolerance for alcohol. Caleb was surprised too. The pressure had kept him sober. He sent his colleague home in a cab and checked his watch. It was past 11. The possibility of closing the deal tomorrow was thrilling, but he was also troubled by his colleague's attempt to steal his client. He remembered a piece of advice he had once dismissed as cynical. To climb the ladder, you have to step on others. Tonight, he had done just that. Lost in thought, he walked for a long time. He was disoriented when a car horn blared behind him. He turned and recognized the license plate. The car pulled over and Jax leaned out, asking what he was doing there. Caleb was surprised to see him. As he moved closer, he saw someone in the passenger seat. Zane, Jax's old flame. Jax told him to get in, that he'd give him a ride. Caleb hesitated, his eyes fixed on the passenger seat. He waved his hand, saying he'd just grab a cab. Jax insisted, pointing out that he was swaying on his feet. The car was in a no-stopping zone. Caleb's stubbornness kicked in. He refused to get in, declaring that someone was coming to pick him up. Jax was skeptical. Caleb, glancing at Zane, blurted out, "My boyfriend." To make it convincing, he held up his phone and announced proudly that he had just called him. The awkward standoff was cut short by the realities of traffic. Zane said something to Jax. The engine roared to life, and the car sped away, leaving Caleb standing by a lamppost. He felt a moment of triumph, then sighed at his own foolishness. He needed to focus on the contract. He walked a little further down the street to a less monitored area and tried to hail a cab. One slowed down, then sped off, the driver likely wary of his drunken state. He was about to curse his luck when bright headlights illuminated him from behind. Car pulled up. Jax got out and strode toward him. He stood over Caleb, who was now sitting on the curb, and asked, "Where's your boyfriend?" Caleb was caught. Jax pressed, asking if he was still drunk or if he had been lying. Caleb shot back, "Where's yours? Did you get lost and have to come back?" They stood in tense silence for a moment before Jax sighed, pulling him to his feet. "You're drunk," he said, then muttered to himself, "Idiot, arguing with a drunk." Caleb was too relieved to argue. As Jax pulled him toward the car, he thought about how inappropriate it was for two men to be holding on to each other like this. He almost pulled his arm away, but then a mischievous thought struck him. He decided to leave it, imagining the trouble Jax would be in later. But the passenger seat was empty. Jax buckled him in, his face grim. He told Caleb he had things to do after dropping him off. The moment he was in the car, Caleb felt drowsiness wash over him. He vaguely registered the car starting, the window rolling up, and then nothing until he was being led into a large, unfamiliar house. He panicked, grabbing Jax's arm and asking where they were. Jax looked at him, surprised. "My place." This wasn't the apartment in the north end of the city. This house was decorated in a sleek, neoclassical style, with modern art on the walls and a grand piano in the corner. Jax explained that he had bought it as a model home, complete with all the furniture, because it was easier. Caleb understood, but then he remembered his contract. "I have to work tomorrow," he said, fumbling for his phone to set an alarm. He explained the importance of the deal, the urgency. He had to get back to his apartment. He turned to leave, but Jax grabbed him. "What's wrong with my place?" Jax asked, his eyes intense. "Who's your boyfriend? Is it that guy with the glasses? Or the one with the beady eyes?" Caleb was confused. He knew the guy with the glasses must be Leo, but who was the other one? Jax explained it was the person he had seen Caleb talking to in front of his building once. Caleb barely remembered him, a new colleague from another department. Jax tightened his grip, demanding to know who it was. Caleb's heart pounded. "It's none of them," he finally said. "Then who?" Jax persisted. "Someone I don't know? A colleague? A friend?" He moved closer, his other hand gently brushing Caleb's hair before resting on the back of his neck. Caleb felt a surge of alarm and tried to step back, but Jax held him fast. "What about you?" Caleb countered, trying to sound calm. "Is the guy from the car your boyfriend? Does he know how nosy you are?" Jax's voice was soft. "Which one?" "Two people were in my car today." He watched Caleb, a ghost of a smile on his lips. As Caleb's face flushed, Jax's expression hardened. He leaned in, his lips brushing Caleb's ear. "Have I ever told you how good you look in that suit?" Jax had noticed him that first day, when Caleb had gotten off at the wrong stop after an interview. He'd been intrigued but had dismissed it. The second time was when Caleb was preparing for another interview. Seeing him in the suit had stirred something in him, but he had let it go. Tonight, however, was different. He had seen Caleb at Starlight earlier, bowing respectfully as he offered a toast to a client. The sight had unsettled him. He spent the rest of his evening distracted, worried that Caleb would be taken advantage of. He had returned to the restaurant, but Caleb was already gone. The lighting in the room was soft, and the alcohol was starting to hit Caleb again. He was pressed against the wall. Jax's lips traced a path from his ear down his neck. Then his mouth found Caleb's, his teeth grazing his lower lip. Caleb gasped in pain and tried to push him away, but Jax held him tightly, kissing him with a desperate hunger, alternating between rough bites and tender, all-consuming passes of his tongue. A soft moan escaped Caleb's lips. He heard Jax's ragged breathing, his voice a hoarse whisper, asking when it had started. if they had slept together, if he was any good. The words, raw and possessive, ignited a fire in Caleb. He twisted his head and bit down hard on Jax's shoulder. The rest of the night was a blur of tangled limbs and feverish passion. Caleb knew they were just two men driven by long-suppressed desires. He had fantasized about Jax's body, and tonight, fueled by alcohol, he had acted on it. He didn't know what Jax was thinking, but he saw the raw lust in his eyes, mingled with something that looked like affection. He barely remembered how they ended up on the bed. His last clear memory was of the ornate chandelier above, spinning as their bodies moved together, until exhaustion finally claimed him. He was woken the next morning by his phone. It was his colleague, excitedly telling him that the client had come in to sign the contract. Caleb sat bolt upright, his voice a hoarse croak as he asked when. His colleague, laughing, told him the deal was done and that it was Caleb's contract they had signed. He then commented on his raspy voice, attributing it to the previous night's drinking. Caleb felt a wave of relief. He looked down at the purple marks on his collarbone and shoulder, then coughed, blaming his voice on the alcohol. He asked his colleague to call in sick for him, saying he needed to get some medicine. The bed was a mess. He called out for Jax, but there was no answer. He gathered his clothes from the living room floor and took a long, hot shower. As he left the apartment, he wondered what this made them. But as long as Jax didn't have a boyfriend, he wasn't a homewrecker. And whatever this was, it was better than being a one-night stand. He bought a variety of medications on his way home. His throat was sore, his body ached, and Jax had left marks on his neck and wrists that would be difficult to hide. He called Sarah to let her know he'd be busy for a few days, then vigorously applied a bruising cream before heading to the office that afternoon. His colleagues congratulated him, and he accepted their praise with a newfound, quiet confidence. He overheard them gossiping, calling him a wolf in sheep's clothing. He didn't mind. In this environment, being nice was synonymous with being weak. The label had never done him any favors. Being feared at least meant he was seen as a threat. Morgan, the colleague who had tried to undercut him, avoided his gaze and promptly took the rest of the day off. That afternoon, Jax called. Caleb hesitated before taking the call in the break room. Jax's voice was uncharacteristically tentative. "Hey, baby." Caleb almost dropped the phone. Jax seemed embarrassed. He cleared his throat and asked if he was awake. Caleb, rubbing the goosebumps from his arms, confirmed that he was and asked if he had called the wrong number. Jax insisted he hadn't, explaining that he had flown out on an early flight for a business trip and hadn't wanted to wake him. They fell into an awkward silence. Caleb hadn't had time to process what had happened, and Jax's attempt at intimacy was making him uncomfortable. Jax asked where he was. When Caleb said he was at work, Jax questioned why he wasn't resting. He then asked if he had taken the keys he'd left on the coffee table. Caleb was confused. Jax described the full set of keys, for the building, the apartment, everything, that he had left for him under a note. Caleb realized with a jolt that he had probably locked them inside. As another colleague called him out of the break room, Jax's voice came through the phone, asking if they could talk when he got back in a few days. Caleb, distracted, agreed before quickly hanging up. In another city, under a steady rain, Jax's friend, Julian, shook his head. He asked why Jax had to be so dramatic, leaving Zane stranded at a club the other night just to make a point. Jax, holding an umbrella, replied dismissively that it was easy to get a cab from there and that he'd had more important things to do. Julian sighed, accusing Jax of being deliberately provocative. He pointed out that their relationship was a series of manufactured dramas. He reminded Jax that he and Caleb were just pawns in his game with Zane. He asked if he found it all entertaining. Jax shrugged. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not interested in him anymore. You're too close to see it, Julian said. He argued that if Jax really had feelings for Caleb, he never would have been able to live with him as just friends. He couldn't have restrained himself. It's different, Jax insisted. He explained that Zane was wonderful but high maintenance, and their different backgrounds created a constant pressure. Julian pointed out that Caleb was also a college graduate from a top university, no less. He didn't see the difference. Julian had recently been helping Jax manage some family business, and their collaboration had improved their relationship. Now, as Jax dragged him around a tourist trap looking for a crystal souvenir, Julian finally understood. He cautioned Jax not to be impulsive. He described Zane as genuine and sincere, a rare quality. He warned him that people from difficult backgrounds, like Caleb, were never a blank slate. They were survivors, always looking out for themselves. He suggested that Jax was drawn to the challenge of winning over someone difficult like Zane, and that the easy conquest of Caleb might not hold his interest for long. Jax finally lost his patience. Why are you so invested in this? He snapped. Zane is jade, and Caleb is crystal. They're both valuable. Maybe one day I'll decide I prefer jade, but right now I want the crystal. And anyone who keeps talking to me about jade is an idiot. He spent the next few days shopping, amassing a huge pile of gifts. He was planning how to ask Caleb to pick him up from the airport when he found out Caleb was having his own problems. That day, Caleb's manager praised him in a team meeting, reading a glowing review from the client he had just signed. He then announced an opportunity. A major potential client, Mr. Sheen of Azure Horizon, who had almost signed with them years ago, was in town. The company wanted a reliable person to reestablish contact. It was a high-risk, high-reward situation. The room fell silent. Caleb realized it was a reheated dish, a deal that had gone cold for a reason and would be difficult to revive. But when he saw the manager's displeasure at the lack of volunteers, he remembered the promised promotion. The main duty was to handle difficult situations for the boss. Taking on this impossible task was his chance to prove his loyalty. He volunteered. Jax, meanwhile, was trying to call Caleb before his flight home, but his phone was off. When he landed, he received a text. On a last-minute business trip to El City. Back in about 3 days. 3 days. If Caleb made any progress, it would be worth it. If not, it was a waste of time and money. He had to hand off his current clients to do it, a sacrifice he made sure his manager knew about. He even suggested Morgan take over a nearly closed deal, a move that made Morgan's face a mixture of shock and dread. Jax didn't understand any of this. Standing at the airport baggage claim, unloading suitcase after suitcase of gifts, an entire box of durian pastries whose smell made him nauseous. Still warm cakes he had bought that morning. He felt a growing sense of frustration. Why was Caleb suddenly so busy? Was he being avoided again? He finally got through, only for Caleb to immediately decline the call. Caleb was in a car with Lena, an executive assistant to one of the company's vice presidents. They had been on the same flight, and she had graciously offered him a ride. When Jax's call came in, Lena was on the phone with her own boss. Caleb immediately silenced his phone. When she finished her call, Lena asked if he was on this trip alone. Caleb explained that, with the month-end rush, everyone else was busy. She shook her head, telling him that his job was simply to complete the mission. If he needed support, he should have demanded it. She then asked if he had booked a hotel. He told her he was staying at a budget business in downtown. Cancel it, she said immediately. She explained that for a client of Mr. Sheen's stature, he needed to project an image of success. The cheap hotel would kill any chance he had before he even started. Caleb knew she was right, but he was paying for the trip out of his own pocket, with only a few thousand in his account and a CR card. Lena saw the ambition in his eyes. She told him that she and her boss had booked 3 suites at the Grand Hyatt, and 1 was spare. He could use it and she would handle the expense report. The location was far from where he needed to be, but it was an offer he couldn't refuse. After checking in, Caleb saw 3 missed calls from Jax. He called back. Jax immediately demanded to know where he was. Caleb, amused at being interrogated, reminded him he had texted. When Jax pressed him about not answering his calls, Caleb explained he was with a senior colleague. "You're not avoiding me, are you?" Jax asked, his suspicion evident. "Did you run off because you knew I was coming home today?" Caleb sighed. His history of avoiding Jax made any denial sound weak. He finally said with a laugh, "I can run, but my mom, my sister, and my nephew are still living in your apartment." That seemed to placate Jax. "That's right," he said, his voice turning mock-threatening. "I have your family as hostages." Caleb chuckled. Then Jax's voice softened. "I kind of miss you," he admitted. He told him about all the gifts he had bought, the 4 large suitcases, how the smell of durian was making him sick, and how he had saved a warm pastry for him, only to find out he was gone. He sounded so genuinely dejected that Caleb felt a pang of something warm in his chest, which was immediately extinguished when Jax added, "I almost had them throw everything away at the airport." Caleb couldn't help but smile. "Did you?" "No," Jax said. "It was expensive. I'm not going to waste money like that." Caleb laughed, thinking how his perception of Jax had changed. First, he was uncouth, then rich, then handsome. And now, he just seemed endearingly foolish.